Good morning. It's good to see all of you. Welcome to the Dean's Forum. I'm Richard Lawson, and I'm joined by our guest, Beth Hendrix, whom I'll introduce in just a moment. But first, good morning. Warm welcome to everyone who's joining us here in person and everyone who's joining us online. Before we begin, let us pray. So the Lord be with you. Let us pray. Oh God, we thank you for this day, this beautiful fall morning in Denver and in Colorado, and the chance to gather in this place and think about your presence in our lives and your presence in our world. May your spirit of wisdom, your spirit of justice, your spirit of peace, your spirit of love rain down upon us in abundance and grant us wisdom, love, and hope for this world, for these coming days and weeks, for these midterm elections, and for all that we face at home and abroad. May you empower us to think critically and above all live Christ-like lives for the sake of ourselves and for our neighbor. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Please come forward. It's really good to see all of you. Good morning. So our guest this morning is Beth Hendrix. Welcome, Beth, to the Dean's Forum and to St. John's Cathedral. Beth is the executive director of the League of Women Voters in Colorado. She's the first executive director of this organization. She's a friend to many in the parish here at St. John's Cathedral, and it's a joy to welcome you to St. John's.
Well, thank you. It's a joy to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're going to start by, we'll dive into politics in just a moment, but I wanted to begin with a question to ask Beth. She has a long and rich history in the Episcopal Church, and especially at a great parish called All Saints Pasadena. So tell us about your relationship with the Episcopal Church and All Saints.
Great, thank you. I grew up in Pasadena. We became involved in All Saints when my folks split up when I was about 7. My mother, while she did have a college degree in home economics, had very few marketable skills and didn't want to stay home with 4 little girls going crazy as she was adjusting to a new life as a divorcee in the early 70s. So she turned to the church, like many do, and they took her in. They gave her a job, taught her skills, and when she brought me and my 3 sisters to be baptized when I was, a couple years later, when I was 9, the clergy of All Saints Episcopal was put down as our godparents because my mother had no witnesses to stand up with us. So there was no getting out of church. And some Sundays we went twice because All Saints was a very progressive parish, and in the 70s instituted rock mass on once a month on Sunday
the
night.
Rock music.
Yeah, rock mass.
My goodness.
So it was mainly Godspell and Jesus Christ Superstar, but that was fine. We rocked. Yes.
Yeah. And what have you taken with you from that experience at All Saints?
All Saints, in its progressiveness and its activism, really further instilled in me. I am a child of busing in Los Angeles. I was typically a minority at school as a white girl, and All Saints really kind of further instilled in me that all people are equal and that all people are really the same at their heart, and all people deserve equal opportunity and equal respect.
That's wonderful. Well, before we dive in on some very specific questions about the upcoming election and some of the stands that your organization is taking, tell us just broadly about the League of Women Voters.
Well, the League of Women Voters was founded in 1920, February 14th, 1920, when it was clear that the 19th Amendment would be ratified. So the original suffragists came together and formed the League to educate these 20 million new voters so that women would be informed voters, educated voters, confident voters, and would also know how to run for office. So we also use the League's platform for advocacy. The very first act that the League advocated on and got passed nationally was the Cable Act in 1922. This allowed American women to retain their American citizenship if they married a non-citizen man. Before the Cable Act, women just lost their citizenship as soon as they married a non-citizen man, and the League changed that. So since then, we have continued the fight for equal rights and fair voting access, secure elections. We fight against dark money in politics, and we are champions of fair and impartial redistricting.
And that's where I want to hone in on. There's so much we could talk about, and we will do Q&A at the end. So hold your questions, think about your questions. You'll have a time to ask them and ask Beth to say more about a subject or address a new subject. But I want to hone in on election integrity because that's so important to your organization, and specifically the issue of redistricting. I bet most of you know how important that is, but I'd love for you to say a little bit about what redistricting is. One reason why I ask is because I'm born and raised in Alabama, and there's Alabama's going through redistricting right now. It is incredibly controversial. The legislature in Alabama is majority white, and the majority white legislature is trying to go through redistricting and limit how many majority black districts there are. Now, they don't say that's the goal, but for all intents and purposes, that's the result. And that case is right now before the United States Supreme Court. So I think about my home state that I love. But tell us what redistricting is, and then your thoughts on it, please.
Redistricting is the redrawing of congressional and legislative boundaries, district boundaries. Gerrymandering is when this redrawing of district boundaries is done in a partisan manner. Both parties do this. It is not limited to one party, and it causes an awful lot of problems and causes a lot of votes to not have the same strength as they would if districts were drawn fairly. Now, drawing, of course, the word fair is subjective, and what's fair to one is not fair to another. Here in Colorado, of course, we've done it right with the help of the League of Women Voters. The League was one of the main drafters, along with many partners, of Amendments Y and Z, which instituted independent redistricting commissions. Those commissions met last year and redistricted independently. The League does believe that the redistricting process did follow voter intent. And we have an 8th congressional district now due to our population growth. And again, independent commissions handling this. There are a few things we're working to tweak for the 2031 process. Redistricting happens every 10 years after the census. So we won't be doing it again until 2031. And we're looking to tweak a few things that we heard from the commissioners to give them more information at the precinct level about demographics, so we can be sure that things are as racially and economically fair as possible.
So, and again, hold your questions, because there's a lot you could ask about that subject and all of them. But I want to highlight, on your website for the League of Women Voters, it says that your organization is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government and influences public policy through education and advocacy. You've already used the word nonpartisan. What does that mean to you, and why is it so important?
Nonpartisan to me means not related to any political party. The League never endorses or opposes candidates or political parties. We stay away from that completely, and we're just remain neutral as Switzerland, or Switzerland kind of used to be.
Yeah. And that, just for those of you who are Episcopalians in the room, that is very comparable to what churches face too. So we never advocate at any level of the Episcopal Church for a particular candidate, for a particular party. And yet, being nonpartisan, or as the speaker last week whom we had often uses the word bipartisan, doesn't inhibit any of our organizations from being involved in specific issues. And go ahead.
That is correct. The League believes that issues, by their very nature, are nonpartisan. People very regularly make them partisan, but issues are nonpartisan.
Well, let's look then at two issues. So first of all, would love to hear you say, Beth, quickly, and I can help with this. Their website's great. There's a wealth of information on it, and just outstanding job, and especially on your 2022 report about all the stands you're taking. If anyone just quickly has a question about how to get more involved, how to learn about your organization, in addition to the website, where should they go?
Well, the website is a great option. We do also have the full range of social media. I did bring printed brochures on our 2022 ballot issues. Since 1936, the League of Women Voters of Colorado has published nonpartisan information on state ballot issues. Those are out now, and they include pros and cons on both sides, as well as the background of each bill, and those are available for you in the back.
So two issues in the document, if you're looking for it, is called Positions for Action in 2022. And in that document, you take stands on many issues, but two I want to highlight. One is you advocate for the abolition of the death penalty, and the second has to do with behavioral health, but I'll get to that in a moment. Tell us why, for the League of Women Voters, abolishing the death penalty is so important.
The League takes a position on an issue through member consensus. We are a grassroots organization, and we do not take a position until our members, and we're talking thousands of people, agree to support this, that this is a value of the League. In, I believe it was 1982, the League came to consensus that the death penalty should be abolished. I believe it was just because they saw it as the ultimate loss of freedom. And that's something the League is against. And so a couple of years ago, we succeeded in getting it abolished here in the state.
Yeah, and one of the things that just comes to my mind, and of course you're talking to a preacher here, you know, at the center of the Christian faith is a cross upon which Jesus dies unjustly and unfairly. So it's a political, it's in part, it's a theological story, but it's also a political story. And just, it's fascinating that, you know, Christians in this country can read the same Bible, go through Holy Week together, and you know, and we know it's the old trope, the far right and evangelical Christians tend to support the death penalty, looking at that same cross, and others among us, such as your organization, look at that same cross and that same story and come to a different conclusion. But what none of us, regardless of your politics, what none of us can do as Christians is ignore that conversation, because that cross is at the center of our faith, and wrestling with every dimension of that Holy Week story immediately puts us in a political conversation today. God bless us. The second issue that I want to hone in on is behavioral health. And this is so fascinating to me for a lot of reasons. I mean, I don't mind saying this. You know, we need, especially in Denver, pay attention when you're walking or driving around these neighborhoods. A lot of people experiencing homelessness, you don't have to be a psychologist to know, they're going through severe mental health challenges. And we need a heck of a lot more resources and attention on this subject. And your organization is advocating for every U.S. resident having access to affordable, quality in and out of patient behavioral health care, including needed medications and supported services. And here's what I want to ask, Beth, because I hear none of you in this room have met my dad. My dad is he's a fiscal conservative, and I could hear him, if he were in this room, I wouldn't want him to have a microphone. And not because he's a fiscal conservative. I actually have great sympathies with that and consider myself similar. But I know that what he would ask of me and of you is, yes, but how? How? You know, how do we get to something where every U.S. citizen has access to good behavioral health? How do we do that?
I can't really answer that one as much as I would like to. I think we're heading in the right direction by understanding that it's a problem. And that was one of the silver linings of the pandemic in my mind, pointing out that depression, anxiety, other behavioral health issues are common and amongst us, and our children are heavily affected by this. I went to the funerals of two of my friends' children during the summer of 2020 who had taken their own lives, 14 and 17 years old, and I think the realization that this is real includes a lessening of the stigma. It's a shame that we need Naomi Osaka to fall apart in a press conference after a tennis match to believe that there is a real problem, and that even amongst privileged people. So I believe a lessening of the stigma is a good start. And I believe that we're also, as a society, starting to look more at comprehensive health care and understanding how much our mental health affects our physical health. When someone's depressed, they tend to have aches and pains as well, and you know, that's a symptom. It's a reflection of the mind's control over our bodies, and we need to respect that. We need to understand and support those of us who have chronic chemical imbalances. I remember very clearly in the early 80s when the federal institutions were closed, and there was suddenly on the streets of Pasadena an influx of people who were clearly having psychological issues, and All Saints stepped up and created one of the first day shelters in the United States called Union Station. And it was very clear to me as a young teen that something had changed. And now there were a lot of people who weren't receiving needed support. So I believe we're heading in the right direction, not back towards institutionalization, but into comprehensive health care.
Yeah, and one would hope that something like behavioral health care would be a nonpartisan issue. I mean, how do you politicize that? I mean, I know we do, but in one sense, that's something that all people of goodwill should agree. We're going to have different paths to get there, but one would hope that we could all agree upon it. As we shift toward Q&A, so just two more questions. One is, you're on record, I read in an interview where you were asked about what you believe the biggest challenge facing Colorado and our country is. And you said that it's the necessary and long overdue dismantling of systems built on the ideology of white supremacy. What do you mean by that?
Well, our Constitution was written when about a third to half of our population was enslaved and not included in that Constitution. And ladies, that was us too. So, they said all men were created equal, but it took 175 years for the Dred Scott decision to point out that, oh no, black people or black men are 3/5 of a person. Then the Emancipation Proclamation, started to make things right, and there was a period of political renaissance, and then, white people started to clamp down again and make it difficult for people of color to vote. And I will say that the 19th Amendment is an excellent example. The 19th Amendment referred to women citizens, but we need to understand who was not a citizen at that time. Indigenous women were not included in the 19th Amendment because they weren't considered citizens. I'm going to say that again because it's just so mind-boggling. Indigenous women who were here before us were not considered citizens until 1924. People of Asian heritage were not allowed to vote until the mid-50s, 1950s. So the United States was built for people that look like you and me, and we need to continue to right some wrongs so that we have true equity, and because we're reaching the beautiful result of the melting pot that we've all supposedly wanted for our entire history. And it's coming out now how so many people are really uncomfortable with that. And so we need to continue collective conversations about this. And I'm pleased it's coming more to the forefront, that people are starting to understand this and starting to talk about it.
Well, as we wrap up, a question that relates to that, but this one's a little more speculative. So we all feel how divided the country is. Do you think that are we more divided now than we've ever been, or is it that we are, because of social media, because of things like civil rights legislation and people being empowered and having voice and vote, or therefore are we just more aware now of how divided we've always been? So are we more divided actually, or just more aware of what has always existed at the heart of this country from day one?
I think it's kind of a combination of the two, really. I think that division has always been there. Of course, people who have less opportunity have been rightfully resentful, and people with plenty of opportunity and privilege are holding tight to it. It's what they know and what they love. That said, I do believe that the rise in cable news has allowed voices to be elevated and to increase the negative dialogue. That's not the right word, but the negative rhetoric.
Yeah.
And of course, social media, while it does have some silver linings, it has also an awful lot of downfalls as well in elevating negative and ugly voices.
Well, last question before we open it up, and this is the one, FYI, this is the one question I didn't prepare Beth for. So this is her surprise question. You always need a surprise question. God's the God of surprises. What brings you hope?
A lot of things give me hope. I believe in the direction that we're heading. I believe here in Colorado we are doing the right things and have been, with some notable exceptions, for quite some time. We may not rest on our laurels. We must continue the fight because otherwise rights will continue to be stripped from people. But it's groups like this, it's talks like this, it's bills being passed, people rising up and voting. And protesting and marching and advocating. And what gives me hope is seeing the people within the league rise up together. Collective voices are stronger, and our membership continues to grow. I see membership in other similar organizations grow. I see people who never considered themselves to be activists coming out and standing up for what they believe is right. And that gives me hope.
Beth, thank you. So we're going to open it up for Q&A. Luis is going to come around with a microphone. Please do just raise your hand. And even if someone else is asking a question, go ahead and raise your hand so I can see you or Luisa can see you. And please do speak into the microphone. It makes it so much easier for the room to hear. Questions? Who'd like to go first? Yes.
I feel like Vanna White.
Hi, good morning. Beth, you mentioned regarding redistricting that we have moved to an independent council system. I like that. It's very hard for people to be independent. How is the council selected to ensure independence?
Great. The independent commissions were chosen by the legislature, but ordinary citizens applied. And I believe it was half of the each commission was chosen randomly, and then half was interviewed and selected by the bipartisan legislature. And the Colorado Supreme Court did clear all picks.
With the ongoing issue of the dominance of a lower part of the population controlling the Senate and the Electoral College because of the way the Constitution is written, what does the League see as the best pathway to support our democracy? Are you supportive of ranked choice voting? Do you think that's the best way to go? or do you see other things?
The League of Women Voters supports the abolition, the removal, the abolishment of the Electoral College. We have been advocating for a national popular vote since 1970. We also advocate for alternative voting methods, including ranked choice voting, and look and support municipalities or regions or states in choosing which method might be right for them. But yes, we did support the Broomfield ranked choice voting issue last year, and our league in Larimer County is supporting the Fort Collins ranked choice voting. For those who don't know, ranked choice voting in multi-person races, it allows you to not just make one choice, but to rank your choices. I like this person best, and this person second best, and this person third, and you can go all the way down, or you can stop there. It makes tallying a bit more complicated, but as people are removed based on lowest polling numbers, then results are retallied until one person receives a clear majority.
Other questions?
Has the league taken any position on this Alabama redistricting case? And more generally, does the league ever take positions on specific redistricting cases?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head. I wouldn't be at all surprised if our Alabama State League is involved in the litigation, but I'm sorry, I don't know. The league does use litigation as a tool to get things done.
So just to follow up, the league does sometimes submit legal arguments to cases?
That's correct. Both amicus briefs and actual lawsuits. The State League of Colorado is currently involved in a federal lawsuit as a plaintiff, along with our partners, the NAACP and Mi Familia Vota. We have filed a federal lawsuit against the U.S. Election Integrity Plan project, a loosely based group out of Mesa County that is going, we understand, door to door, asking voters how they voted, implying that fraudulent ballots were sent from that address, taking photographs. Sometimes these people are armed. So we have filed a lawsuit to stop that activity, as we believe it is both suppressing and intimidating voters. And we will file litigation to protect Colorado's voters.
I'm Nancy Ulrich, and I'm a member of the Denver League and a big fan of Beth's. It's important for you all to know that the State League office interfaces with many, many cities and towns in in Colorado, and her job is really very challenging. And many of us have admired her and some of her predecessors for years. Now, having said that, this is a comment, unfortunately, not a question. Denver League, for most of you, I assume, are Denver voters. Denver League also has a pro-con brochure. You can call the Denver office and get a copy, or they'll be distributed in the library soon. So both at the state level and on your Denver ballot, you will be able to be better informed about what's happening. And I'm sure you've all already realized how difficult just the state ballot is this year. And then, so this, following this fall's election, next spring will be our municipal election, and that will actually happen in April because of some law changes as well. So thank you for your indulgence.
I brought her, if you couldn't tell. Yeah.
I've known Beth for 30 years, so she's wonderful in the job that she does. I just wonder if you think Colorado redistricting, the newest form, is fair. The redistricting in Colorado, is that fair, what they've done, the newest?
The League of Women Voters of Colorado does believe that the 2021 redistricting process was fair and according to voter intent. Does that mean everyone's happy? No, it doesn't. But we do believe it was according to voter intent. After the chairs of one of the two commissions joined the league after realizing how involved the league was in advocating for Y and Z and making sure the process followed voter intent. And so we're working with this, with the chair of the Legislative Commission to work with the legislature and individual county clerks to preserve demographic data at the precinct level so that future commissions can see how precincts change historically demographically. Right now, precincts are just refreshing that data, and so the commissioners could only see the demographics right then, a snapshot. So we'll be working to get that law passed. We're also working to take away part of Amendment 76, that crazy citizenship amendment that passed the other year that inadvertently, we believe, took away the right of 17-year-olds to vote in primaries if they will be 18 by the general election. So we're working to get that restored. We just got parolees to be allowed to vote. So if you have any parolees, friends or family, they can vote now in Colorado, even if they have a felony on their record. So we believe that that is, they're re-entering society. They should re-enter with full citizenship.
Thank you for your work. Just a quick question. How does the League reach out to diverse demographic groups?
Well, when you join the League, you join at the local level. We have 19 leagues throughout the state, from Steamboat to Cortez. And because we're at the local level, we tend to see a grassroots of people. We also do an awful lot of partnership to meet people where they are. I mentioned some of our biggest partners, are Mi Familia Vota, New Era, Colorado Black Women for Political Action. So collective voices are stronger, and partnership works. Partnership works.
Thank you so much for all of your questions. Just a couple things as we wrap up. One is a big thanks to everyone joining us online. And for those joining us online and for all of you here, if you've not been to church, come join us at 10:30, which is our next service. If you're online, it begins at the same place, sjcathedral.org. And last but not least, well, two things. One is if you have any other questions that you're more comfortable asking in person, Beth can spend a few more minutes here, so come up and right up and ask her. And then really last but not least, let's give her a round of applause.